Lions Church. In today's 5 at 5, we have an opportunity to have a special interview again. One of the things I really like to do about these 5 at 5s is not just Pastor Mark and I sitting here talking or doing silly things like snow angels, but we have an opportunity to be able to know more of what's going on in our church and in our district, and also to get to know some of the people in our church. And today we have an interview with a very special place in our district, Delta Lake Bible Conference Center. Pastor Mark, why is that special for us?
It's special because we go there as a church family every July for family camp. A lot of our kids and our youth go there for different kids camp or youth camp as such. But it's something Delta Lake Family Camp has been a part of Auburn Alliance Church for many, many years, probably going back to the 50s, if I would guess right, where we've had individuals who now are with the Lord, who went there, worked there, were actively a part of the ministry of Delta Lake Camp, and we want to support that and encourage it. It's been tough on Delta Lake, this whole COVID thing, but God is really blessing the camp, and I think they will see from the interview how God is blessing through what Mr. Clark, Steve Clark Sr. and Steve Clark Jr. have to share about Delta Lake. So we love Delta Lake, and so we want you to hear what these directors have to say.
Well, hello, Steve Jr. and Steve Sr., live from Delta Lake. What's the weather like there today?
Well, it's finally cooled off. I don't know about you guys. We had like multiple days in the high 80s, low 90s. It felt like we were in the dead heat of July. Felt like we should have been on the lake boating or doing something. It did not seem like May. Finally, we got some clouds rolling in. There's a breeze. It's cooled off. It's comfortable to be outside right now.
Oh, nice. Well, that's the same here in Auburn. It got hot and I felt like I was ready to pack my suitcase and head to Delta. It felt like July 4th weekend actually, but I constrained myself and stayed home, and we're just here. And we wanted to reach out to you both, Steve Jr. and Steve Sr., to ask you some questions for our congregation to educate them on what's happening and to inform them about what's going on at Delta. There's been some changes. There's been some news flashes that we've seen through your great videos, Steve Jr. We love watching you around the camp every day in a new place. It's fun to find out where you're going to be that day. But I thought it would be good for us to talk specifically about some questions that I have. So what does Delta look like presently, Steve Jr., compared to what it would look like in a normal May?
Sure. Well, I would say right now we probably have like 4 or 5 projects that we're in the midst of. If it was a normal year, we would have started one of them and tried to finish it and get everything else open and ready for the summer. But because of the current situation and really the situation where we won't have our normal summer programs, we're honestly not quite as pressed on time to get things completed. So what it's enabled us to do is get into a few different things and then be able to kind of address those different projects really based on weather, based on supplies that we need, based on kind of a new time frame that we've really never had the opportunity to kind of work with. So it's definitely, I would say, quieter to some degree. But there's still a lot of activity going on. It's just not with too many people. It's with a few of us really working to try to get things beautified, get some projects done, get some things that usually take a back seat because we're always crunched to get things open in the spring. We're able to tackle some things that are really exciting improvements to camp.
That's awesome. That's really good news. It's pretty much probably the same with everyone. I feel the same, that God has slowed us down a little bit to speed us up in the future. He's given us time to do those jobs that you never get to, and maybe to notice some people that you never see. But in the future, I think that will benefit from that. So that's neat to hear. And for you, Steve Sr., it's probably different from the financial end. Maybe tell us, what is your title at Delta for those who don't know, and then how it's changed for you, what you're busy doing.
Well, I've been busy helping with a couple of projects, but my main focus, you asked where are we on the financial side? My main focus the last month and a half has been how do we come to grips with the financial implications of this COVID environment? Becky, the hard news is we've not had a guest group on the grounds for the main means of income since the second weekend of March. We are now 3 full months and a half into a period of time where we have not seen and don't expect to see for the next probably 2 months much in the line of income coming in. Now that could spell disaster for a business. You count on income that will help you work through what you're doing. And so the result has been that Steve, who is the executive director, saw the need, and he and I began plotting how do we work our way through this current environment.
Tell them what your title is, Steve, because I don't think.
My title is stewardship consultant. My role is not to direct anything, not to make critical decisions. That's Steve's role. My role is to help think through where are we with the financial side and how do we manage the income to make sure camp is viable and open and fulfilling its mission. And the mission at camp is welcoming guests. We can't welcome guests when we can't be open.
Right.
Welcoming guests to encounter Jesus. Well, we can't do that when the state says we have to close down. So the hard thing is, how do we then reposition what we're doing to still fulfill the mission when we can reopen in the future? Well, Steve, you were the one that started saying we need to figure out how much that difference, the delta as we call it, not Delta Lake, but the difference between what it's going to take to operate and what we're going to need to get through that. And so tell them about what you started working on back in March, and we began commiserating together even in February when this all started to rear its head.
Yeah, I mean, we had to take a look at hard numbers. What does it take to stay open? What does it take just from a baseline without any additional, and so we look at personnel, 5 full-time staff. We look at utilities, base utilities. So we've really gone through and shut about everything off that we can shut off and really still manage through day to day. What was kind of interesting yesterday, Helen texted me and said, well, we got the utility bills for this month and they're the lowest I've ever seen here at Delta Lake. Well, it's because we've really shut everything off we can shut off. But to cut it down to bare bones, it's still a pretty good size monthly, what I would call a monthly a monthly number to hit between payroll, utilities, insurance. The insurance companies are really good to work with and they're super helpful, but they don't suddenly not charge us every month to have coverage on all of our buildings and our property. So, it's still a big number. And we knew that there was going to be a massive, shortfall because 54% of our income for the whole year comes in these 3 critical months. And it was a time to put the plea out and ask for people to jump on board.
Yeah. And with that, you said, personally, you had told me that you expected Delta to look much different in this coming summer than any other summer. Can you talk a little bit about that? What was expected for this summer?
Yeah, sure. So we had additional groups last year. For the first time, we picked up the New York State Assemblies of God kids and teen camps. They had a wonderful experience. They immediately rebooked for this year with a massive push to increase their attendance. Well, that was we anticipated seeing a pretty good bump from those 2 programs. Our Camp Shiloh program was still on board and had begun to see they had dipped and they were beginning to see an uprise in their attendance. That's in August. We just got word today from them for sure that they're not going to come. And then we booked another large outside group, which would have been another big youth event here for a whole week. which again would have just increased our number massively. The other thing we had booked for Memorial Day weekend, a brand new college ministry that was going to be here for 5 days, which would have been like a whole week of one of these summer camp programs that we operate. So we had a lot of excitement going into 2020 from a financial standpoint, which I don't know since I've been here that I could say I was really excited about finances, but I was excited at what the Lord was doing, the doors that he was opening, the opportunities that we were going to have. And it's not necessarily about money. It takes money to operate. It takes money to stay open. But we had the opportunity to serve a lot of people this summer. Now, that's not what God had planned ultimately. But it did present challenges. And, the other thing that has happened is God has opened new doors with people to give as opposed to necessarily be here for us to serve. So God had everything planned. He had everything under control. And it was just an opportunity for us to really pray and then communicate the vision and the mission, reclarify that, and then allow God's people to respond, and they have.
Well, I'm really glad you mentioned that, because that's where my heart is that it isn't all about the finances. Yes, I am trying to educate our congregation about the finances and to update us with the situation. But, the other part of it that you just mentioned is the hearts that are not there this summer. But like you said, God knew. I'd like to show you my 1976
Oh, wow.
Delta brochure. Look at that. Isn't that great?
Becky, I was 1 year old.
Yeah, you were one. Okay.
One.
I was 10. How old were you, Steve?
Which means the reality is I was already in ministry and was already a camp speaker by 1976.
Okay, well, maybe you were speaking that week. I didn't actually look at who the speakers were, but I found something so interesting, and this goes with what Steve said. He said it's not just about the money. He said it's also about the hearts that are not present there. But, you said a big but, you said God knew, but God knew. And, I just really appreciate you as director, that you, and of course the board is helping you with these decisions, but I really do respect that you are following the guidelines, and same as our churches at Auburn Alliance, we're trying to make sure that we know what the guidelines were. And in this brochure, it's really funny, right here, it says, I'm going to read it, the camp's grounds and facilities are annually inspected and top rated by the State Board of Health. And so even in 76, who would have known that now you are like every day in contact with the State Board of Health, which is now called CDC, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's different levels. There's the state, there's the federal, and then we even have our county that we have to work really closely with. And yeah, those were hard conversations and every couple day conversations with them to try to track the changes, the updates, anything new that they could help us as we did make these decisions about what the summer was going to look like. And I can tell you the email that I got 3 days ago from our inspector, the guy that's here 7-8 times during the summer to look things over. I'll say that he understands. I will give him this as a state employer, a county employee that's really just looking at whether or not we're following the guidelines that they impose and the ones that we have stated we will follow. He looked at, he enjoys what we do. He's very much in favor of camp and a camp program and what we offer young people. But he said, I feel for you guys, but I think you're making the right decision. Everything that they understand. It's just a very difficult environment right now to try to do a camp program and really do it well and make it camp. We could do it, but it wouldn't feel like camp to any of the campers or any of the staff or any of the employees.
Yeah, and we appreciate that. And that's where we come in as Auburn Alliance. Okay, we